Good day, listeners. Thank you so much for joining us on our program, Principles for Effective Change Leadership on Amor Gate Radio Communication. I remain your host, Titilola Ogushono. Today, we'll be discussing the 3 C's of effective change leadership. For any change initiative, there are majorly 2 parts to any change initiative. You have the first part, the process part of the change, okay, and the other part, you have the people part of the change. That is the process, and the people that will drive the process. So a firm's change initiative and an organizational change initiative, from my experience, over the decade, having worked with various sectors, what I've narrowed down to is that a firm's change initiative are more likely to succeed if change leaders could adopt these 3 C's. That is, you must be conscious about how you communicate. The first C, communication. The second C is collaboration. And the third C is commitment. I will take the 3 C's again: communication, collaboration, and commitment. And great change leaders will focus more on their people and process. Let's think of any change initiative, okay? If we want to change your IT process, you want to become an automated firm, want to improve your level of automation in an organization, there are 2 things that will drive it. Yes, your tools, okay? Then you're going to look at your process and your people that will handle these tools. So let's think of any change initiative, we are trying to, deploy. As an organization, your process, your people are very important components of the change initiative. So why do you think some change initiatives actually fail? And why do you think others actually thrive? So that we have been able to narrow down to these 3 C's. Now, the first one is communication, okay? And successful change leaders over the decades are pointing out the critical role that communication plays. Now, how do you communicate to your people? What do you communicate to them? Your people must understand the reason, the rationale behind the change, imperative. They must understand why you need that change process. The truth is, when people don't understand why you are introducing any change process, they are not likely to get committed. Then we are not likely to get their buy-in. So the details of what needs to be changed must be communicated. You must not assume that they know. You must be deliberate as an organization, as a change leader, manning the change imperative. You must be deliberate of details that need to be communicated. Whatever it is that needs to be changed, the details of what needs to change has to be communicated to your people, to the workforce, to your team members. And interestingly, you must even justify why that change is important, okay? When people don't realize why you are bringing in a change process, like I said earlier, you're not ready to get their buy-in, okay? You must also focus on what I call the wifing principle. Okay, what is in it from me? When you are communicating to the people, you have to communicate what needs to be changed and why it needs to be changed. And in talking about the why to your people, you must be able to let them know what is in it for them. Why do they need that change process? Why do you need to get that buy-in? Must they be committed to that change process? It's very important that as a change leader, you must communicate to them. And why must you communicate to your team members? Because basically we have two sets of stakeholders. You have your internal stakeholders and you have your external stakeholders. And whether you like it or not, your team members, the workforce, the employees constitute a very, very important part of the internal stakeholders. So, and when you're communicating to them, the message must be clear. I would say first, it must be very clear. You must be compelling, it must be credible, and must be concise. Now let's talk about the first C. It must be clear, no ambiguity. The message must be well defined. So what are you communicating to them? it must be clear to them, and it must be, I always advise that we use simple language. Just make it a simple language that everybody can run with, everyone in the organization can understand. Okay, and you must also be specific about what exactly needs to be changed. Okay, now when you are introducing any change process, now it's going to involve various levels of change. Now you have to be clear about how does it affect individuals in the organization. How does it affect the organization as a whole? This has to be clearly stated, has to be clearly communicated to the people. Okay, now I also know that sometimes the illusion that we usually have is that communication has taken place when it actually hasn't taken place. So you have to make sure that whatever message you are passing as a change leader must be clear. Now, I was talking about being clear. Now it must be compelling. That's another critical element. Whatever message you are passing across to them, you must involve giving the rationale, the incentive, making a strong case for the need for change. Now, sometimes people don't really think of, are not even aware that they need that change you are bringing to the organization. But you need, as a change leader, as a strategic change leader, for you to make a strong case. Make it so compelling, so attractive that your people would buy into the vision of the change. This is very important. And also, it must be credible. Whatever message you are communicating to the people must be credible. You must give facts must be stated. You must give them correct information. Okay, you can only get the buy-in of your team members when they can trust you, and can also, trust is a journey. Okay, it's a process. You need to build that trust, and can end that trust if you give correct information. Give them the total picture. That's the truth. Some will tell you, give them partial. Okay, be diplomatic about it. Yes, but you have to give them the total picture. Let them understand the total picture of the change process. And once you do that and you communicate in that way, then you can get their buy-in. Communication is a very, very important aspect of the change process. You must communicate the change process to them, why they need it, and you must put in a very compelling manner that people will see what is in it for them. They must see how does the change process benefit them. Now, most times there is this tendency for us to, focus so much about what it means to the organization as a whole. But you have to be deliberate to look at how does it benefit individuals in the organization. Okay, so it becomes like a symbiosis, not parasitic. So it becomes a win-win for both employees, your team members, and also the organization. I love this quote from John Powell, which says that communication works for those who work and see it. So it means that it's not a one-off. You have to be deliberate about what you communicate. You have to be deliberate about how you communicate it. And the how comes from the position of clarity. It comes from the position of it being credible. It comes from the position of it being compelling. It comes from the position of it being concise, and complete information. This is very important. And how well we communicate is not determined about how well we say these things, but how well we are understood. So we must make sure that as a change leader that you communicate in the language, simple words that your people can understand, that your people can work with, that your people, can trust the change process. This is very, very important. And also, you should understand that for you to communicate with them, you must connect with your people. Great communication begins with connection according to your priority. And I share a thought on this. Okay, if I want to communicate with you, with my team members, if I don't have that relationship with them, how do I communicate with them? It becomes a bit of a challenge. So it brings me to the second C, which is collaboration. collaboration. Even the business world has moved from where we have fierce competition to a lot of collaboration, partnerships happening in the global space. So even within the organization, you cannot do it alone. The change process, like I said, there are two things. You are bringing in a change process, you are bringing the change imperative. It cannot be done alone by the change leaders. You are going to need other people, you are going to need other unit heads, you are going to need individuals along the line. So the second thing that you have to bear in mind is, how do you collaborate with everybody that is relevant in the change process in the organization? Okay, and this involves, how do you bring people together to plan, to execute and implement the change process? How do you bring them to, like I said, to plan, execute and implement? So, and from surveys that I've gathered over the decade, I've realized that the greatest change initiatives that have been successful are always, you are able to get the buy-in of the people. If we argue and say not everyone will be involved at the strategic planning phase, yes, but you have to make room for more people to be at that level. Now, when you are planning, bringing change together, you have to be deliberate about bringing people together to understand the need for them to work together. Okay, when people come together, is a very important aspect of a change process. When people come together, when you can bring them to be part of the, that initial process of the planning process, you get their buy-in. At that stage, they can hear their views. At that stage, you can listen to them, speak out their fears about the change you are bringing. You can also, at that point, you're able to not involve them, okay? And you just bring in those initiatives. It becomes management initiative and not the organization initiative. It now becomes, it's the MD that said this, it's the MD that wants this, it's the change leader that wants this. Not, this is our plan. Okay, so involving them at that initial stage, the planning stage, helps them, to see the bigger picture. It helps them to see the role, the role their job functions will play in the bigger picture. It helps you to get their buy-in, and it helps you to get their commitment and also their engagement. Okay, this is very important. You must be deliberate about involving them at that stage. Now, some will say some of them might not have the right skill set for the planning stage, but you also need their inputs. Okay, their input is very critical. Sometimes the greatest ideas that will move you forward as an organization might not even come from very top level management. It will come from your team members. It will come from middle level management and down that. So it's important that you find a way, that everybody works together. You have to be able to work through people. I said, great leaders work with people and work through people. You can't do it alone. The way the work environment is structured is not a standalone. It has to be collaborative, and collaborative effort is what really helps the change process. Collaboration is very important, and you have to collaborate with all relevant team members across the organization. That would play a very active role in the change process. Okay, so it's important that you build that team spirit, and I'll say that you must create that atmosphere where people feel safe. You must create an atmosphere where people can express themselves. You must create an atmosphere where people can be creative, where people can be innovative, where people can hear their views, okay, and they will not feel that they will not have the slightest feeling that they will be victimized for speaking their mind. So it's very important creating that environment, conducive environment where people can be themselves is very important for a change leader. And you have to be deliberate about it. Because when you talk about collaboration, people will not collaborate with one another if they do not trust one another, if they do not feel respected by the other person. People would not want to collaborate with one another if they do not think that they are adding value, if they do not think that they matter. So the truth is, you must create an environment where every team members feels valued. That's it. I must be in an organization where I am made to feel important. And it's so easy. You have to be deliberate as a change leader to create that kind of environment. And we have realized that when people leave organizations, they do not leave organizations, they simply leave their managers. So you have to, be deliberate about it. You can't talk about collaboration where people within a particular unit cannot relate freely. You can't talk about collaboration where people in a particular business unit do not feel that they are valued. You can't talk about collaboration where people in a particular unit do not feel that their voices can be heard. So even in terms of collaboration, it's interwoven. You cannot talk about collaboration without even effective communication. Okay? Because effective teamwork begins and ends with communication. How do you relate with one another? Okay? How do you communicate with one another? How do you get feedback from one another? How do you get feedback even from the management? Is it a two-way channel? So collaborative effort is, top down, bottom up approach. From top to the last person on the radar in the organization, and even from the last person, on the organogram to the topmost person on the organogram. So that is the way. Effective communication, is very important because it also fosters collaboration and teamwork. It's very important. Now, even when people fail in an organization, when somebody drops the ball in an organization, somebody has made that mistake, how do you correct them? Okay? When they make mistakes, do you correct them in a constructive manner or destructive manner? And that speaks to the culture of organization. Your cultural values as an organization does it center on teamwork? Now, what team bonding activities, do you carry out in organization? And it's so interesting that sometimes the only thing I see organizations do is just the Christmas part, or the end of the year part. Now, does team bonding have to take place just once in a year? You relate with one another every day. So you have to be deliberate to be innovative, create avenues when people can relate with one another. Now, some would say that is the advent of virtual meetings, is the advent of hybrid meetings. But even when you are holding your meetings virtually, there are ways to foster team bonding. You could have people from various units coming together online. You put on your videos, you have tasks, online that people can do together, and they can even take outside to their workstation, communicate. So you have to be strategic about it to create that environment where people can collaborate with one another, and because, like I said, these are very, very important. The 3 C's for effective change leadership. You want to lead change, you have to start thinking about how you communicate. You have to start thinking about collaboration in your organization, and these are very critical, issues that you have to look at. Create that environment where people can bond, create that environment where people will feel valued, create that environment where people can give you feedback, two-way channel. Create that environment where people, can, make their mistakes and they can learn from it. This is very important. If we are still just joining us, we are discussing the 3 C's of effective change leadership, and it's still our program, Principles for Effective Change Leadership, on Amor Gate Radio Communication, and I still your host, Titilola Ogushono. Well, we have spoken to communication, collaboration, And it takes me to the third C. And the third C is commitment. The third C is commitment. Now, as an organization, you have communicated. In fact, even brings us to talking about an organization will have what we call the communication policy. Definitely, communication policy. Okay, now you have the policy in place. You have created an environment where people can collaborate effectively. Now, commitment is very key. I wish I could tell you that everything that you have laid down would work the way you plan. I wish I could tell you that in reality that there are no risks. You would have been able to, proactively, envisage all the risks that could come up within a financial year. But in reality, some things will come up. Some things might not work the way we have planned them. Okay, it could be systematic risk and it could be unsystematic risk. You can't control natural disaster. You can't control the death of, God forbid, it happens. Demise of an important person in the change process as a change leader. You can't even control inflation rates. You can't control exchange rates. All of these things, there are a lot of variables that you cannot control. You can't even control environmental factors. Okay, now the question is, when everything that you have put down, where all the policies, the processes, all of the estimations, the budget that you have made have been well articulated on paper, and circumstances present themselves suddenly, what happens? That is when, as a change leader, you need to put on the commitment cap. Okay? Commitment is very important because change process could take time. And when these unforeseen circumstances come up, as a change leader, it's a time for you to put in more effort. You need to spend more time to support that change process. No, you must spend your resources in terms of time. Like I said, you must spend your effort to support the change process. Because these things come up, like I said, and you cannot control them. And you know that leadership is about your ability to influence. And you must have, the word about commitment is follow through. You must have the follow through to push it till the very end. So change leaders must spend time and effort to support the change process. Okay? And you must commit to continuously motivating the team members. This is very important. Your commitment must be towards achieving that goal, resilience, ability to bounce back when there is a major setback, on the way, during the period of implementing a change. Okay, your ability to, put your eyes on the ball is very important. And I love the words of Jim Roy. He said, motivation is what gets you started, but commitment is what keeps you going. You have to be committed as a change leader. You have to be committed that irrespective of what happens, you must follow through. Because if you are committed, then others, your team members, everybody in that team, everyone in the organization is looking up to you. So if you are not discouraged, if you keep motivating yourself, self-motivation is very important. If you are a change leader, your ability to motivate yourself, to keep the spirit high, commitment all through, then other will join the train. This is very important. And it's also critical that you build, like I mentioned, an environment that supports the change process. You must follow through. Now, am I saying things will always work out the way you plan? Definitely no. But what I'm saying is that you must be deliberate, about keeping that tempo, that change tempo, so that others can also lean on you, lean on your self-motivation, and also get motivated. Now, I can't give you all the tips of how to motivate your people, because what is going to work for a particular set of people in a particular organization might not work for the other. Okay, but what is important is that you must understand the peculiarity of your team members and the peculiarity of your organization, the people there. You must understand, what motivates each category of your workforce, of your team member. And if you understand what motivates them, then you are going to be deliberate, committed to actually achieving those goals. Now, to motivate them, commitment to motivating them is sometimes, as a change leader, you might assume that you know what they want. You might assume that you know what would motivate them. I would advise from experience that you carry out a survey, invite them. They could fill a survey, it could be interview, listen to your people. Okay, find out for them what will motivate them, because when they are motivated, getting that commitment becomes easier. Okay, and it also encourages you. And when you get that commitment, like Henry Ford would say, if everyone is moving forward together, then success takes care of itself. If you stay committed as a change leader, if you build an environment where people can work together collaboratively, where they feel safe, where they feel valued, okay, then everyone will be on the same page with you, everyone will be on board, and success becomes a natural out at the end of the day. Okay, thank you so much for staying tuned. So we've spoken to the 3 C's of effective change leadership. That's communication, collaboration, and commitment. Most people fail not because of a lack of desire, but because of a lack of commitment. So as a change leader, you must have the ability to motivate yourself. You must have the ability to motivate others. Create an environment for continuous motivation across board, so that collaborative efforts will be synchronized together and the change vision can be achieved. Thank you so much for staying tuned on today's episode of the 3 C's of effective change leadership. Remember, I'll leave you with the words of Pat McMillan, who says, excellent communication doesn't just happen naturally. It is a product of process, skill, relationship, and hard work. At this point, we draw the curtain. If you have any comment, feedback, questions for us, send a mail to contact@thearmoredgate.org. For feedback, comments, suggestions, questions, kindly send your mail to contact@thearmoredgate.org, or you could send a WhatsApp message to our WhatsApp line 08079574151. I'll take that again, 08079574151. Thank you so much for staying tuned. Hope you join us same time, same station next week, and remain Titilola Ogushono. Thank you.